Some rides don't have a destination. They have a reason, and sometimes the reason isn't for the driver. This is Whisper Vault. I drive rideshare part-time. That's what I tell people when it comes up. My day job covers rent, covers groceries, covers the phone bill and the insurance and the car payment. The driving isn't about money. It's about what happens when I'm alone in the apartment after midnight and the walls start pressing in. I'm not depressed. I want to be clear about that. I don't sit in the dark staring at the ceiling thinking heavy thoughts. It's more like restlessness, like there's a low current running through my arms and legs that won't shut off until I'm moving, until there's somewhere to go. Behind the wheel, the world simplifies. There's the road. There's the next turn. There's the quiet hum of tires on pavement and the occasional voice from the backseat telling me where they need to be. I started doing it about 2 years ago. My name is Marcus, and I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a building off Garfield Avenue. Working-class neighborhood. Mostly quiet after 9. A convenience store on the corner that stays open until 1. From my bedroom window, I can see the parking lot of a strip mall and the edge of an overpass. It's a fine life, but fine has a sound to it at 2 in the morning, and that sound is silence. So I drive. Late-night rideshare has its own ecosystem. You learn the passengers by category. Airport runs. College students stumbling out of bars, loud at first, then asleep before you hit the highway. Night shift nurses still smelling faintly of antiseptic, checking their phones in the back seat with that particular exhaustion that comes from 12 hours on your feet. Sometimes it's someone who clearly had a bad night and just needs to get from one place to another without explaining anything. I like those rides, the quiet ones. There's something honest about two strangers sharing a car in the dark, not talking, both understanding that nothing needs to be said. The city changes after midnight. I don't know how to explain it other than to say it becomes a different place. The traffic lights switch to blinking yellow on the emptier streets. Gas stations glow like small outposts in otherwise dark stretches. The FM stations hand off to overnight hosts who talk in low voices, playing songs from decades you forgot existed. Most of my rides between 2 and 4 in the morning are short. 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 at the most. People need to get home. They're tired. The transaction is simple. The night I'm going to tell you about started like every other. It was a Tuesday in late October, that narrow window of fall where summer is fully gone but winter hasn't committed yet. The air coming through my cracked window had that dry, metallic taste, the one that shows up right before the first frost. I'd been online for about 3 hours, a handful of rides, nothing consistent. The app goes quiet on weeknight Tuesdays in a way that makes you wonder if the whole city went to bed early. By 2:30, I was thinking about signing off. I was parked in a gas station lot near the highway interchange, drinking a bottle of water that had gone lukewarm on the passenger seat. The overhead fluorescence hummed through the windshield. I was reaching for the button to go offline when the request came through. 2:43 a.m. The pickup pin dropped on a corner near the south edge of downtown, an older part of the city, the kind of block where the streetlights are spaced too far apart and most of the storefronts pull their grates down before 10. I knew the area, not well but enough. I'd picked up passengers near there before. The name on the request was Mara. No rating listed. That happens sometimes. New accounts, or accounts that have been dormant long enough that the system drops the history. It's not unusual. It's not a red flag. I accepted the ride. It took about 7 minutes to get there. The streets were empty. I hit every green light in sequence, which almost never happens, and for some reason that small detail stuck with me, like the road was clearing itself. The pickup point was quiet when I pulled up. One streetlight, throwing a circle of pale orange onto the sidewalk. A closed laundromat with the metal gate pulled down. A bus stop with one of those cracked plastic shelters that nobody ever sits in. No one standing outside. I slowed the car and stopped near the curb, checked the app again, confirmed the address. Right location. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. I glanced at the sidewalk, at the laundromat, at the bus stop. Nothing. I was reaching for the cancel button when the rear passenger side door opened. I hadn't seen anyone approach. Not from the sidewalk. Not from between the buildings. One moment the street was empty, and the next moment my door swung open and someone slid into the seat behind me. The door closed gently. Not a slam. A soft, careful pull. I caught a brief movement in the rearview mirror. A woman, sitting directly behind the passenger seat, her head turned slightly toward the window. Dark hair, shoulder length, a pale face, though in that light everyone looks pale. She wasn't looking at me. Evening, I said. Came out automatically. That's what I say to every passenger. It's my version of a neutral greeting. Not too friendly, not too cold. No response. That wasn't unusual. Some passengers don't want to talk. I've had plenty of rides where neither of us said a word from pickup to drop-off. I never take it personally. I checked the destination on the app. Usually the map loads a route right away. Little blue line, estimated time, turn by turn ready to go. This time it just showed an address. Lindenwood Road, east side of the city. No route had populated yet. Just confirming, I said, glancing at the mirror. Lindenwood Road? She didn't answer. She didn't move either. But the ride had started. The timer was running. The app showed the trip as active, the fare accumulating in real time. So I pulled away from the curb. The streets stayed empty. Green light after green light. The city felt like it was holding its breath. I kept checking the mirror the way drivers do. Not because I was worried. Just habit. You glance up, confirm your passenger is still there, look back at the road. Every time I looked, she was the same. Sitting still, hands folded loosely in her lap, face angled toward the window. No phone, no bag that I could see. No earbuds. No movement at all. The silence in the car started to feel different from the normal kind. Heavier, like the air pressure had changed. I turned the radio down. Not off, just low enough that it became background noise. Barely there. We were about 10 minutes into the drive when I merged onto Haverford Boulevard. If you know the east side, you know this road. It's a long connector that cuts through an old industrial corridor. Almost 2 miles of straight, flat pavement. No traffic lights. No turns. Just empty road with abandoned warehouses on both sides. Loading docks with rusted roll-up doors. Chain-link fences around lots where nothing's been stored in years. During the day, it's just ugly. At night, it's something else. The kind of stretch where your headlights feel too small for the darkness on either side. Where you drive a little faster than you mean to because the openness makes you uneasy. The tires hummed differently on that stretch, a hollow sound against the empty buildings. Halfway down that stretch, I glanced at the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. At first, I thought she'd shifted forward, leaned down to reach into a bag or tie a shoe, something normal that moved her out of the mirror's frame. I adjusted the mirror slightly, tilted it down. The entire back seat was visible. Both sides, the middle. No one. I checked the passenger side mirror. The side window showed nothing but the dark interior. My hands tightened on the wheel. I waited a second before looking back. I looked over my shoulder, quickly, keeping the car straight. The back seat was completely empty. Both doors were still closed. I could see the locks, still down, still engaged. No door had opened. I would have heard it. I would have felt the change in air pressure, the brief rush of cold from outside. The cabin would have shifted. Something would have changed. Nothing had changed. I slowed the car. My foot came off the gas gradually, and I drifted toward the shoulder. The ride timer on the app was still running. Passenger Mara. Trip, active. Fare, still counting. I pulled onto the gravel shoulder and stopped, put the car in park. The engine idled. The heater fan whispered through the vents. The radio played something I wasn't hearing. I turned around fully, put my hand on the headrest and looked at the entire back seat. Empty. Not just empty the way a car is empty when no one's in it. Empty in a way that felt wrong, like the space had been vacated seconds ago and still held the shape of someone being there. I sat back and stared through the windshield. For a moment, I considered the obvious explanation. Fatigue. I'd been driving for over 3 hours. It was nearly 3 in the morning. I'd imagined the pickup. I'd imagined the door opening. I'd imagined the woman in the mirror. But the app disagreed. Trip in progress. Passenger Mara. Destination, Lindenwood Road. Duration 11 minutes and counting. You can't hallucinate an active trip on an app that's connected to a payment system. The timer was real. The fare was real. Someone had requested this ride, and the system was tracking it. I checked the door handles again. Both rear doors. Locked. 12 minutes. 13. The navigation finally loaded the route. The blue line appeared, threading east through the remaining stretch of Haverford Boulevard and then off onto smaller roads. Lindenwood Road. Another 14 minutes away. I sat there on the shoulder for a long time. Maybe 2 minutes. Maybe 5. I don't know. And then, for reasons I still can't fully explain, I put the car in drive and pulled back onto the road. I don't know why. Part of it was the app. The trip was active. The destination was loaded. Some part of my brain that runs on routine just said, "The ride is in progress, so drive." Part of it was something else. Something I don't have a word for. A feeling that I was supposed to finish this. The route took me farther from the city. The warehouses gave way to vacant lots, then to patchy residential streets where every third house was dark and the rest had porch lights on but no signs of life. Then the houses spread farther apart. Then the streetlights stopped. The road narrowed. 2 lanes became 1.5. The pavement got rougher. Old cracked asphalt with weeds pushing through at the edges. Trees started closing in. Not gradually. Felt sudden, like crossing a line. One moment the road was open and the next I was driving through a corridor of old oaks and elms. their bare branches interlocking overhead like fingers. My headlights caught the trunks on either side, pale and scarred, flashing past in steady rhythm. The temperature in the car dropped. Not dramatically, not like someone opened a window, just a slow, steady cooling that I noticed in my hands first, then in my breath. The heater was still running. The vents were still pushing warm air, but something had shifted. The navigation voice, which had been quiet for several minutes, spoke. In 500 feet, turn right. I turned onto Lindenwood Road. It was barely a road, more like a paved path wide enough for one car, with trees pressing close on both sides. The pavement was buckled in places. Fallen leaves had drifted into piles along the edges, and my tires crunched through them with a sound like static. My headlights swept across a stone sign set back from the road, weathered, covered in moss along the top edge. Lindenwood Memorial Gardens. A cemetery. I stopped the car. The sign was old. The lettering had been carved, not printed, and some of it had worn smooth. Below the name, a smaller line read, "Established 1923. The gates were open, not wide, just enough for a single vehicle to pass through. The iron was dark with oxidation, and the left gate leaned slightly inward, as if it had settled into the ground over the years. Beyond the gates, a narrow gravel lane curved into darkness. I could see the shapes of headstones on either side, pale against the black grass. Some were upright, some were tilted. A few had small solar lights near their bases, glowing faintly green. The navigation voice said, "You have arrived." I sat there with the engine running. The trip timer read 24 minutes. Passenger Mara. The heater fan cycled. The engine ticked. Outside, nothing moved. I don't know what I expected. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe I was waiting for the backseat door to open again, for something to step out and walk through those gates and disappear into the rows of stones. Nothing happened. After a while, I ended the trip. The app processed it normally. Payment received. Digital receipt generated. The screen returned to the home map, showing my blue on this dark road at the edge of the city, alone. I turned the car around slowly on the narrow road, branches scraping the roof as I maneuvered, and I drove home. But I didn't go to bed. Something about the empty back seat kept turning over in my head. Not the emptiness itself, but the transition, the door opening, the brief glimpse of her face in the mirror, dark hair and pale skin and eyes that never looked at me, the weight of someone being there and then not being there. I sat at my kitchen table with the overhead light on and opened the trip receipt on my phone. The passenger name was listed clearly. Mara Sandoval. I typed it into a search engine. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. Maybe a social media profile, a LinkedIn page, some evidence of a normal person who had somehow gotten out of my car without me noticing. The first result was a news article. Local paper, dated 3 years earlier. The headline was straightforward, the kind of headline small papers run when they report on traffic fatalities. No drama, just facts. A woman named Mara Sandoval, 31 years old, had died in a single-vehicle accident on a Tuesday night in late October. Her car had left the road at high speed and struck a concrete barrier. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The location listed in the article was Haverford Boulevard, the industrial corridor. the straight stretch between the warehouses. The same road I had driven an hour earlier with an empty backseat and an active trip timer. The article included a photograph. It was one of those photos that looks like it was pulled from someone's social media. Casual, slightly pixelated from being enlarged. She was smiling, standing somewhere outdoors, maybe a park. Dark hair, shoulder length, pale face. It was her. I closed the browser and set the phone face down on the table. The kitchen light buzzed faintly above me. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed on Garfield Avenue, its headlights tracing a slow arc across the ceiling. I sat there for a long time. I didn't drive for 5 days after that. I told myself it was because I needed rest, and that was partly true, but mostly I was running the timeline through my head, over and over, trying to find the seam where it stopped making sense. The ride request had come in at 2:43 a.m. I remembered because I had looked at the time when it appeared, the way you do when you're deciding whether to take one more ride or go home. The accident report in the article listed the time of the crash. 2:46 a.m. 3 years earlier. Same road, same time of night, same season, 3 minutes apart. I thought about calling someone. I don't know who. I thought about telling my friend Danny, who I've known since high school, but I could hear the conversation in my head. The long pause, the careful voice. You been sleeping okay, man? You been stressed? And then the suggestion that maybe I should take a break from driving. Maybe talk to someone. So I didn't tell anyone. I went back to driving the following Tuesday. The first few rides were normal. A couple heading home from a late dinner. A guy going to the airport for a red-eye. A nurse, tired, polite, heading to an apartment complex near the hospital. I drove past the Haverford Boulevard corridor around 1:30. It looked the same as always. Dark, empty, warehouses on both sides. Nothing happened. I drove past the corner downtown where I'd picked up Mara, slowed slightly, looked at the bus stop, the laundromat, the one streetlight. No one there. The following nights were the same. Routine rides, quiet streets, nothing out of the ordinary. But then the request started. The first one appeared on a Friday night, around 2:40 in the morning. I was parked near the highway ramp, finishing a water bottle, when a ride request popped up on the app. Passenger name, Mara. Pickup location, that same corner downtown. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the accept button. The request disappeared. Gone. Like it had been canceled, or like someone else had taken it. I sat there in the parking lot for 10 minutes, waiting. Nothing else came through. The second time was the following Wednesday. Same hour, same name, same corner. For seconds on screen, then gone. It happened again the Saturday after that, and again a few nights later. Kept happening. Not every night, maybe every 3 or 4 nights. Always between 2:40 and 2:45. Always the same name. Always that corner. And always gone before I could respond. I started to think of it as a glitch. Some artifact in the system. A phantom account that hadn't been properly deactivated. Maybe the payment method was expired. Maybe the app flagged it and canceled automatically. Reasonable explanations exist for almost everything. I held on to those explanations for about 3 weeks. Then last Tuesday it happened again. 2:43 a.m. Mara. Same corner. This time I was ready. I'd been watching the clock. I'd been parked 2 blocks from the pickup point since 2:30. My phone in my hand, the app open. When the request appeared, I accepted it instantly. The screen confirmed. Trip accepted. Navigation loading. The pickup was exactly where it had been the first time. I drove the 2 blocks slowly, turned onto the street, pulled up next to the bus stop. Same streetlight, same shuttered laundromat, same cracked plastic shelter. The street was empty. I put the car in park, left the engine running, watched the sidewalk. Nothing. 30 seconds. A minute. And then the back passenger side door opened. Slowly this time, not the quick, confident motion from before. This was deliberate, measured. The door swung open as if someone was being careful not to rush. A rush of cold air came into the car. Not wind, not a breeze, just cold, still and dense like opening a freezer. And then the door closed. Gently. The ride timer started. I looked at the rearview mirror. This time she was looking back at me. Same dark hair, same pale face, but her eyes were open and they were fixed on the mirror, which meant they were fixed on me. Not blinking, not moving, just looking. Her expression wasn't hostile. It wasn't sad either. It was focused, like she was trying to tell me something without speaking, like she was waiting for me to understand. I held her gaze in the mirror for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then I looked at the navigation screen. The route was already loaded. Lindenwood Road. Same destination. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I put the car in drive. I pulled away from the curb and started east. The lights were green again, every one of them. The road opened up ahead of me like it had been waiting. I checked the mirror. She was still there, still looking at me. We drove in silence through the empty city, past the gas stations and the dark storefronts and the blinking yellow signals, past the turn onto Haverford Boulevard. This time, when we entered the industrial corridor, I didn't look away from the road. I kept my eyes forward. I watched the pavement unspool in my headlights. I felt the emptiness of the warehouses on both sides like a weight. And I felt her there, in the back seat, not moving, not speaking, but present. The road ended. The route turned. The trees closed in overhead. The temperature in the car dropped again, the same slow cooling, starting in my hands. When the navigation said, "You have arrived," I stopped the car outside the cemetery gates. They were open, same narrow gap, same leaning iron. I looked at the mirror. The back seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. I hadn't heard it. I hadn't felt it. But she was gone. And on the seat where she'd been sitting, there was a small patch of condensation, like breath on cold glass, already fading. I ended the trip. The app processed it. Payment received. I drove home. I've been thinking about it every day since. Not with fear exactly, something closer to obligation, like I've become part of a pattern I didn't choose and can't break. Like every few nights at 2:43 in the morning, someone needs a ride to Lindenwood Road. and for whatever reason, the app chose me. I've driven past the cemetery twice during the day. Once I went in, walked through the rows, found what I was looking for in the older section, near the back wall, where the headstones are simpler and the grass is less maintained. Mara Sandoval. The dates matched. There were no flowers, no flags, no indication that anyone had visited recently. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I don't know if she's choosing me specifically or if I just happen to be the closest driver when the request goes out. I don't know if she knows what happened to her or if she's still trying to get home, 3 years later, following the only route her mind remembers. What I do know is this. The requests haven't stopped. Every few nights, the name appears, the corner, the time. And each time I accept, the door opens. The ride timer starts. And we drive east through the dark city together, in silence, toward a place where only one of us belongs. I keep driving. I don't know how to stop. There are passengers we carry and passengers that carry us. Sometimes the distance between a fare and a haunting is nothing more than an open door and a willingness to keep going. Some rides never reach their destination. They just keep arriving. If you're listening in the dark tonight, keep the lights off a little longer. This has been Whisper Vault. I'm James. Until next time.